Hey mate, good to see you again. Longy here, ex-NRL Fantasy champ. In 2013, I took home the 25 grand and trip to the UK with the Australia team for the World Cup. So I'm somewhat qualified at this, but at the same time, everyone's opinion's equal. We're all taking shots. Really just stoked to be here. I guess for fantasy, I wanted to cover a few things off here. I'm going to do a team reveal. But before we jump into that, I think there are two ways you can win fantasy. Obviously, with 150,000 coaches, it's very hard to do. But one option there is that you play a near perfect season. You make all the right calls. You're relatively sensible. You don't fall for the traps. And yeah, you just absolutely nail it. The other option that I think stacks the odds in your favor a little bit more is that you play a good season, a pretty regular season, but you make a few select calls that are really different to everyone else, and those come off. So when I'm building my fantasy roster, I'm looking for those calls. I'm looking for guys where no one else is really that interested. Maybe the value isn't that obvious. It's definitely not guaranteed, but it's someone you got a feeling about, or it's someone where you can see how they would potentially walk into more points. So that's where my head's at here when I'm building this team out. So let's jump right into it. That takes us into the team here. So I'm going to talk about a few of the interesting pods here first, and we'll jump into the starting side. We'll go with Eli Katoa first. So Eli Katoa is really interesting. He was a 46 average last year. He was a 51 average when he played over 60 minutes. So 5-point increase in average there. I looked at a few other factors there for the Storm as well. Last year, they had quite a few injuries. They weren't at their best. I think they'll be better this year. I think Eli Katoa will benefit from that. And also, it was his first year in the team, and it was first year playing that big minute role as well. So again, he had some injuries, some niggles. He was getting used to that. I think Eli Katoa at 639K, there's a chance he's a 55 average kind of guy. So I'm thinking I might get a cut price keeper there. The Penrith fixture in round one isn't great, but he's got no buyers for a long time. So I'm really interested in him. We'll stick with Lukey there as well. So 498K. Again, I'm sort of looking for that quick win, right? Because with a guy like Lukey, if he plays well, everyone's going to rush him in, but maybe I can grab some points before everyone else grabs him. So I look at these matchups and I go, all right, Dolphins, Knights, Dragons to start. Broncos is not an easy one, but then Titans, even the Eels and the Sharks, they can leak some points as well. So I'm probably going to take the leap with Lukey, 498K. At the same time, I know Sean Lane is a guy who's floating around. I've dropped him out of my team for now just because he looked a bit average in the trials. He's still value for sure, but he just fell out of my team. Like, he might make his way back in. Right now, I'm sitting on Eli Katoa. I just think there might be a bit more upside in that, and I'm sort of anti-potting Sean Lane as of today, which it's not a firm stance, but it's where I'm sitting right now. In the forward pack, look, like the front row is pretty straightforward. We all know Cotter and Totola are a serious value. I just like the way they sit in this roster. 587, 45K. These are cheaper guys who should make about 10 points of value for me. Payne Haas, I'm thinking he's a must-have. I think he'll start really, really hot. But at the same time, even if he averages 70, it's only 5 points of value. So if you want to skip him, go ahead. Reece Robson, it's tricky at hooker. I just can't find the cash for Harry Grant. I think Damien Cook could be all right this year too. Reece Robbo, 660K. Coruscant is not that much cheaper than Robbo. He's about 50K cheaper. And I don't know. I think he's a bit dicey compared to Robbo. Even with the goal kicking, that's only a few points. I just think we might see more of a bounce back from Robbo. The other thing is, again, we're talking about those fixtures. They're fixtures where Robbo could score a try early and maybe he rushes out to an early lead too. Also, the Cowboys boys don't have a fixture a buy fixture for a while. In the back line, look, Cleary and Fogarty, I've sort of jumped around a bit. I had Cleary and Hines for a while. I removed them to make some more space and strengthen the bench in particular. So I'm sitting with Fogarty right now. I need to see him fully fit though, but I think that could be good. The center pairing is disgusting. It's a couple of 250K guys, which is not ideal. But right now, I think Ethan Strange is the starting six. I think Ben Trebojevic is the starting center. So starting back row, but starting center for me. So I'm looking at that and just thinking, all right, that's probably good enough. I might have to make a trade at some point to fix that up, which is why I'm actually okay with taking a gamble on more of these mid ranges. Because if one of them doesn't come off, I can trade them to an outside back who's performing, like a Bailey Simonson. So Bailey Simonson was in my team. He picked up that niggling injury in the trial game. I'm a bit worried about that going into round one. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I just sort of look at that and think I'd rather sort of wait and see how he goes. I think Sivo is going to be missing from that wing for the first 3 weeks as well, so that makes that edge a bit less potent too. Look, again, Simonson might find his way back into my team as well. So back three, James Tedesco has come in very recently. Look, Teddy, he had a great trial game recently. He ran about 200 meters. He looked like the exact same Teddy we know and love. He's got some tougher fixtures to start the year, but I think it's 670K. Getting a bit of a discount there. I think we're going to see a much better James Tedesco this year. I think the Roosters will be a much stronger team this year as well. Pappenhausen, obviously we know that. Kane Bradley, this is not convincing at all. There's guys like Bradley, Keanu Keeney, potentially Chevy Stewart. If he gets a spot, it doesn't look like he will. It looks like Rapana will get that spot. But even Rapana, he's been in and out of my team. I'm just so uncertain about the Raiders that I'm kind of trying to steer out of that one right now. So Kane Bradley is sitting in that spot. There's a chance he wins the starting spot over Sean Bloor. I still think it's unlikely. So he's a bit of a placeholder right now. I can make some moves and sort of get someone else in that spot instead. On the bench, I've got a few guys here. So Pia Kura and Tupanua are pretty straightforward options. They're in that 400K mark, and they're guys who could easily get into the 5 to 600K sort of section. Maybe even above that if they have a good try scoring run. So that's pretty straightforward. Hands, we know and love. Hands, Flanagan, 41 average in his career. Probably won't goal kick, so maybe call it a 36. It's still value at 349K. Xavier Wilson, I'm keeping an eye on him. He probably isn't going to be in the 17 this week, which is heartbreaking because I was all in. His PPM is fantastic, and he's obviously a talented guy. So that's got me a bit annoyed. Marty Tapau comes in. Maybe it's because the NFL crowd's going to be louder. I have no idea what's going on at Brisbane, but I think Xavier Wilson at some point this year will do a Wirra McGreek, and he'll walk into some minutes. Jamin Salmon, again, it's a placeholder. Look, if he doesn't get the start, then Josh Curran probably comes into my team for Halem Lukey or for an Eli Katoa, one of these guys, maybe Ruben Cotter, and that'll free up some cash for me to do something in the back line as well. So we'll see what happens with Jamin Salmon. If he starts at lock, you got to pick him up at 289K. McKaylee, elevated to the top 30. PPM machine, got to get named in the 17. That's what I'm waiting on there. Sam Hughes, obviously we know and love Sam Hughes as well. I'll take you through, though, a quick one on each position and who I'm most upset that I don't have at each spot. So at hooker, it's probably going to be Harry Grant. If I could find the cash for Harry Grant, I'd love to have the top gun at hooker, but I can't. At the front row spot, there's a few guys here. I think Isaiah Yeo is probably the one. I've had a few iterations of this team that had Isaiah Yeo in it, and I really like them. He's rock solid. He holds his value. He's going to consistently knock out those 50 to 70 scores. But I just think I had to go for the value at this stage. Another guy would be Max King. I think Max King has some upside too, and Whisper originally sort of brought up the injuries he had last year. But yeah, Max King's red hot. He could be about 100K value as well. Then in the back row, God, there are so many options. I wish Zach Hosking was starting. He's the guy I wish was starting, but that's not happening. Smithies might be interesting. Smithies could get some minutes at lock. Corey Horsburgh comes back after a few rounds though, so I'm a bit dicey on that. But Smithies, if he gets the minutes round one, I'll be keeping an eye on that. I might make that move pretty quickly. Canberra have debuted some fantastic locks over the years, and they've just given these guys minutes. So Smithies could be that beneficiary. In the back row, obviously, Sean Lane as well. Sean Bloor, if he gets a start, he'll come right back into my team. In the halves, who am I wishing I had? Oh, I can't stop thinking about Matt Burton in the halves, but I just think he's got all the tools he needs to be a great fantasy player, but doesn't seem to do it. I mean, obviously, Nico Hines, he's got really good fixtures in round 2 to 4, Nico Hines. So I think he's actually going to be the best captain for the first month of footy, and there's a chance I may move Cleary to Hines instead. Look, I can't commit to either way now. Swiftex, there you go, a bit of sponsorship for you. Yeah, I can't commit either way right now. Look, Cleary or Hines, it's going to be one of those guys. I might actually switch that to Hines at some point. In the centers, it's guys like Penasini, Simonson. I think both the Para boys have a bit of upside this year. I think Parramatta in general will be a lot better. And then at wing fullback, who do I wish I had at wing fullback? Maybe a Jordan Rapana. If he gets the fullback spot full time, he's like a 47 average when he plays fullback. Who else do I have FOMO on? I don't really love a lot of the big guns. I think if I'm going to go for a gun, I don't mind Teddy being that guy. So I'm going to call it, yeah, no FOMO at wing fullback. But look, let me know in the comments what you think of this team. This is going to probably change before I even post this. So I'm recording this late at night on Friday, and look, you'll be seeing this on Saturday. Look, it's posted before the round one games though. So what I would recommend as well is if you are setting your roster, just make sure you bring these guys who are playing in the Vegas games, bring them into your starting side, because once they play, they're locked in, and it gives you more flexibility to have you guys that you can swap around. So I just had it like this because Eli Katoa looks good in the starting side. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Best of luck with your teams. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and peace out.